Hey guys, welcome back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with our Jinx basic guide. Now Jinx is a late game hyper carry who's capable of 1v9ing team fights, and the main way she does this is whenever she gets kills, she gets a passive reset which gives her a lot of movement speed and attack speed, which allows her to gun people down and blast them. But of course you just do need that one kill, and a lot of times if you don't get that one kill, you're in trouble because you don't have the best damage output without your passive. It's still amazing, but you kind of need your passive to take over a team fight. She's generally pretty weak in the earlier stages of the game, but of course as she scales with items, she scales into a late game hyper carry that is incredibly strong. And of course, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump straight into talking about what her skills and abilities do exactly. So we're first gonna start off with her passive, and this one is a little bit challenging to explain because we do need to kill someone for this to happen. So we're gonna have to hit all the way over to the lane. Basically, whenever she kills someone, she gains bonus movement speed and attack speed whenever she kills anyone. So here we're gonna go ahead and try to kill this Nasus. Like that. So you guys can see we get the bonus movement speed, bonus attack speed. You guys can see that. Basically, that's what it does. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Since we're already here, let's just go ahead and launch this dummy over here. So let's talk about her. Let's talk about her Q. So first up, her Q. She has two forms. She has minigun form and she has rocket form. So minigun form, what it does basically is when you attack, you can see the number over the minigun icon. You get stacks. So you can see that as you attack, you gain attack speed up to 3 stacks. And when you convert to rocket form, this attack speed actually stays there. As you consume your rockets, the attack speed will start falling off, which leads to rocket form. So rocket form, basically what it does is you get a higher range version. So for example, take a look here. We have this kind of range here. And then if you convert into rockets, you have bigger range. So once again, range conversion, like that. I can't stop moving towards the dummy apparently because there's a target. Let me maybe go somewhere where there isn't any target. So here, you can see the range reaches to about this tree. When you convert to rockets, your range goes all the way past the wall. So for the rockets, you fire the rockets a lot more slowly, but you have a lot of range. And it also does AoE damage. So here, if I put more dummies around, you can see that when I blast, for example, this dummy, the two dummies at the back are going to get blasted. Now, of course, I do have like a Runan's Hurricane at the moment, so maybe I should just hit back to base and get rid of my items. I needed those items to show you guys how the kill works. So let me just sell some of my items here, and let me just spawn some more enemy dummies. Alright, so once again, when you blast, it's gonna hit everybody around, as you guys can see here. Something like that. And it does consume your mana, so if I'm out of the base, maybe you can see that a little bit easier. You can see every shot consumes mana. You look at the mana bar, it's reducing, and the mana you have is going down. And yeah, so next up you have her W. So, alright, something before we talk about her W, we're going to talk about her Q. Basically, every time you level up your Q, which is what you max first, we'll cover that later, you get more attack speed on your Q, and you get more range on your, not on your W, you get more attack speed on your minigun, and you get more range on your rockets. And the rockets at max rank is actually the highest range in the game. It's higher range than Tristana at max level, it's higher range than Caitlyn, so this is also one of the factors why Jinx can stay far away. You can see that I can blast people from like all the way almost from not off my screen, but you can see I can blast them from all the way back here, which is a long ways away. And now we can talk about her W. So her W is a skill shot, pretty long range. Pretty long range. So you can see basically it hits the first target and it does a little bit of damage like that. It can only hit one target at one time, and it can be blocked by enemies. So for example, if I'm trying to hit this ADC on the back here, this guy, it can be blocked by the tanks in the front, so I can't actually hit him. So next up is her traps. You guys can see here. Basically, you throw some traps down. They take like a second to arm, and when they arm, if anyone steps in them, they're gonna get rooted and take magic damage. So I'm gonna show you guys what happens here. So for example, if you toss them onto the enemies here, they arm and then they get rooted. And basically that's how it works. And then last thing is her rocket, which is her ultimate. So her rocket is a global ability. You can see here if I fire it straight down, it's gonna go all the way to the enemy base, like that. And basically, when you shoot the rocket at somebody, it's gonna obviously explode and deal damage to everybody around, including the target hit, of course. So for example, if I'm going to fire on these group of people, you can see all of them take damage, and it is also scaling off of missing health, as well as I believe distance, not distance travel, but it scales off of missing health. So the less health someone has, the more damage your rocket is going to do. So this is really good for getting cross map snipes and executes and that sort of deal. Okay, so now that we've covered all of Jinx's abilities, now I'm going to actually talk about Jinx's leveling order. So Jinx's leveling order is relatively straightforward. You want to start Q at level 1 so that you have access to your rockets at level 1. Then at level 2, you want to take W. I've seen some people take W at level 1, but in my opinion, it's not worth taking W for that 1 or 2 zaps that you're going to actually use when you can actually just get rockets instead. Then of course you take level 3, you take the E, the chompers. You want to max Q first. Of course you take ult whenever available. Max W second. And of course you max E last. And now we're going to talk about Jinx's combos. And Jinx honestly doesn't really have any combos. As a matter of fact, Jinx's generally what Jinx wants to do is purely only auto attack. You generally, when you reach like 3 items or so, honestly you're losing damage if you use your W and your E or your ult. So you just want to auto attack. You almost never want to use W unless you need to slow someone who's running at you or who's running away. And you only want to use the chompers when someone is trying to jump at you. Like you want to, for example, there's a Rengar coming from this direction. Then you want to, for example, just put the chompers here between you and him, and then you can continue cutting away. And you don't ever want to really put the chompers directly on anyone, but we'll cover that in the tips and tricks. But basically you just want to keep on blasting people. If they're low, you can use your ulti and of course get the final hit, and that's pretty much it. No real combos, but I'm going to talk about tips and tricks. She does have quite a number of tips and tricks, and the first tip and trick I have is using your rockets. A lot of beginning Jinx players tend to use only the minigun, and they don't really use the rocket so much, because minigun feels really good to use. You can blast people really quickly, like that. It feels really good to blast people at the attack speed. However, it has very short range. So most of the time, you want to use your rockets in team fights. In team fights, you really want to use the rockets for the extra range. You can see that with the rockets, I can stand all the way over here. But with the minigun, I have to walk all the way over here to attack. Now, the distance is like 2 or 3 steps. But of course, this distance in a team fight can mean the world and can make the difference between you living and dying. So, of course, you do want to use your rockets. You can also use your rockets to poke and farm. So, poking with your rockets in lane is really important, because Jinx's rockets outrange a lot of champions. So it's like a Caitlyn of how you want to get 1 or 2 autos in. You change the rockets, get an auto in, continue farming minions. Change the rocket, get an auto in, continue farming minions. And if you're against like a kill lane, like a Draven, you can even use your rockets to farm using the range, and get more last hits. Now next up is using your W to check bushes. So your W actually grants you vision of bushes. So here, if we hit over here and we plant ourselves an enemy dummy here, we can't see him obviously, but if we use our W into a bush, we can actually check to see if anybody's there. So you can see the dummy there. It grants you vision of the dummy, like that. Alright, so the next thing is using your E. So you want to E where they're going, not where they are right now. So you never want to use your trap directly on top of an enemy. They know it's coming. They're not going to let it arm. They're going to move away. So for example, if this guy is, for example, a Rengar, he wants to go on me, I can use the traps directly onto myself. Or if, let's say, this is a set who's running toward me, I can use the traps between me and him. Now the opposite scenario is, for example, you're attacking this guy. He's low health, he's running away. You can use the traps in front to cut off his escape. You never want to use the traps directly on top of them. You want to use the traps where they're going to go. And finally, I'm going to talk about using your ultimate. So your ultimate does do a fixed amount of damage against, not fixed amount, but a capped amount of damage against objectives. But you can actually use your ultimate to try to steal objectives, and this does work from time to time. Of course, the success rate is not going to be very high, but you know, you do still want to try sometimes to try to get objective steal. So for example, if the enemy team is doing the dragon here, let's say you have or you don't have vision, doesn't really matter. You try to use your estimation and you launch the rocket at the enemies. You don't launch it at the dragon, because you're launching it at the dragon or herald, for example, it doesn't actually hit. So for example, you see here, I'm going to use it against the herald. It's just going to fly through. It's not going to actually hit. So you want to aim for the enemies, and using the explosion, you're going to get damage onto the dragon. So for example, if we look here, boom, you can see that the dragon took damage because it hit the enemies. So like that, once again, boom, you can see the dragon took damage right there. Of course, he didn't take a lot of damage, but since it's missing health damage, he's going to take a lot more damage when he's low, and you could possibly get a steal. I've stolen a lot of barons and dragons using this, and it never really hurts to try. Now, the final tip is to don't be afraid to use your R into an enemy team, even when they're high health in a team fight. So for example, if this is a team fight, let's say there are 5 enemies here, and let's say the fight is happening here. Let's say I have my team, let's say over here. So here you can see they're all, like, the whole enemy team is full health, but you don't hesitate to just blast the rocket into the whole enemy team. Why? Because you can see that it damaged literally all 5 of them here. And the reason why this is important is because if your team happens to one-shot someone, you can get the reset off of your passive, and you can continue blasting people, you know, and just DPSing. So sometimes you can just use your rocket to get damage onto the enemy so that you can possibly get a reset from your passive, and sometimes that's the right way to use it. So anyways, that's all for Jinx's basic guide. Stay tuned, of course, for Jinx's updated and complete guide.